a playlist original.
All right, hello everyone. My name is Gaius Bowling, and I have to do this intro a little different this time. Even though this is technically, I'm recording the 62nd episode of Back to the Blockbuster. This is the very first episode of our spin-off that we're doing called Back to the Blockbuster Presents Deep Dives with Owen and Gaius. And
Let's go.
you heard the first name, right? He said he'd be back, and
Yeah,
he's back in here to stay. So
let's
welcome back.
go. Let's
Welcome
go.
back
I'm excited,
to
man. These
yeah,
deep dives are always been one of my favorite parts, and I'm excited to be a part of this new little spinoff, man. It's gonna be good.
yeah. How this kind of came about, for people that are interested. Um, Everyone knows that like Owen had taken a hiatus from like the main show, and then it was about like for me like trying to figure out, all right, how do I convince him to come back, or like would he want to come back? And like I talked to him like off the line a few times where he's like, I do kind of miss it, but I think I think we both knew that he couldn't come back to it the way it was, because it kind of wasn't like, I love the main show. The main show is good for like what it needs to do, like the
Yeah,
keeping up with the industry news and like keeping up with like what's new and current. But it
yeah.
kind of wasn't what the original idea for the show was. Like
hmm
especially with like conversations that we would have about movies and stuff like that. So I was like, all right, well, I let me think of something. And what happened was the lead up to our 1 year uh episode, I had to like go back and kind of look at the whole year and be like, okay, what worked, what didn't work.
hmm
And our most popular episodes are anything to do that was like movie centric, whether it
hmm
was like an anniversary episode focusing on one movie, or if it was the deep dives that we started to do.
hmm
I went first. I had the social network, but since this was about trying to convince Owen to come back, I had to be like, all right. I looked at the deep dive that he did for No Country for Old Men, and that took
Yeah.
me back to like when we first were becoming friends. He like basically wrote down a quick review and in his like iPhone notes, and was like,
hmm
hey, can I call and like read it to you? And I was like, sure. And it was a really good review. And that kind of was like, along with a few other like conversations, that was kind of like the essence of what the show was supposed to be, just like kind of like
Yeah.
diving into like all these different types of movies and stuff.
hmm
So I was like, all right, I think I can make something work with that idea, but I didn't really completely flesh it out. And then I had to convince him to do the 1 year episode, which wasn't really hard. It was like, do you want to do it? And
Yeah,
he
I was gonna say you said kind of missed it, and I was like, I think saying kind of missed it is definitely an understatement. I mean, I miss just chopping it up with you and talking movies and everything, and I think that one of the best things about the show is the fact that I mean, it's basically just what we talk about offline, but just in the presence of a microphone now, and it gives
yeah,
us the ability to basically just like have the same kind of conversations that we would have when we're out hanging out, when we're out on during the weekend, whatever it is.
yeah,
Because somehow a movie would be referenced somehow, and then Gaius and I would kind of be like, "Oh, like this was a part that I really liked, and
yeah,
this was something that I really enjoyed about it." We would just start talking details, and that would kind of go off into other movies that a main actor had done, and then it just kind of spun off into basically just a big conversation surrounding a specific movie, different things that were like it,
yeah,
director styles, and just kind of basically talking about one thing was concentric around a specific movie. And I think that that was one of the things that I enjoyed the most
right.
of the deep dives, especially that we did during the regular Back to the Blockbuster show.
Yeah. And and those episodes were the most fun to do because like it's hard, like I mean, I do press and stuff. I know you don't, but like it gets annoying talking about, because like when we would cover industry news, we couldn't just like cover like one thing for 1 week. We couldn't just say like, oh, Ezra Miller did this and not bring it up
Yeah.
the next week. So you
Yep.
had to keep like, once it kept developing, we kept having to bring it up. And if that's not like your interest at all, it almost turns into like almost TMZ type of situation where it's like,
Yeah.
oh, and that I mean, there is an audience for that, and people do like to hear it, and like they've liked hearing it on our show. But I've gotten a lot of people who are like, well, we really like when you just talk about like one movie, and
Yeah.
you guys kind of break down what you like and what you didn't like, and like
Mhm.
and go into like the making of it and like all that kind of stuff. So that was kind of like where my head was at. And then we did the 1 year one, all 2 hours and 47 minutes of it, which
I
like
know,
thankfully,
dude. We could not stop. We couldn't
yeah, I
stop. It
know.
was great.
Well, thankfully everyone liked listening to it because it did really well.
Nice. Yeah.
And it was one of those things like when it was over, like after we were done recording, it was like kind of like, how did that feel? And you were like, it was fun. That was really fun. Like I really missed
Yeah.
it. So then that's when I was like, hey, like I have an idea. Like just let me know, like if you're
And I
down
think
for it or
before
not.
you even stopped, I was like, I'm in. I was
Yeah,
like,
pretty much. I
let's
I
do
even
it.
I don't think I even get to finish the idea.
No, you were
It's
like, listen, man, I was thinking like kind of a spin-off. I was like, perfect. I don't care what your idea is. I'm in. Like, let's
I
do
want to do it.
it.
And
Yeah.
like yeah, that was the funny part because I thought I was gonna get like, well, let me sleep on it or let me think about it.
Yeah.
But no, it was
Well, I
like right
think
away.
I think one of the best things about this idea moving forward is that with some of the pop culture and a lot of the stuff that we used to cover was we ended up talking. I mean, yes, I loved my rant on Morbius and that was amazing, but we did have to cover and we did talk about a lot of things that maybe one of us wouldn't have necessarily watched on our own time. I mean,
Right.
I wish that I could say that I love every single movie and every single TV show out there, but obviously I have some favorites. And so I think
Right.
one of the best things about this is the ability to revisit some of the things that we continue to enjoy to watch. I mean, I'm a serial rewatcher of things. And so
Right.
being able to come back and see it from a different lens or just get your opinions on it and just start to kind of dive into the things that we really like about specific movies, I think gives us a really big opportunity to come back and just like revisit some things that we really enjoy. And I think that that's great because as much as we love talking about, the new Lightyear movie and then like why it didn't do well or why it didn't
yeah.
succeed, like, yeah, we can talk about that. And I think that's extremely interesting. And I still tune into Back to the Blockbuster every single week. But also love talking about stuff that's 10, 20, however many years old. And it's they still hold up to this day.
Yeah, and that's the good thing too. I think like, and I talked to other podcasters who are like, oh, there's like almost pressure to like keep up with what's current because like that kind of that boosts your downloads. Everyone like and like that's what kind of hits.
It's pop culture. It's what's new and what's popular.
And that's I guess the good thing about spinning it off is that we'll be able to have the best of both worlds. That main show will still be there. And it will still pretty much be the same, but like this will be like its own thing, its own separate thing. And basically, like one of the first questions that someone sent me was like, how is it going to be different from the other show? This is going to be a bi-weekly series, so basically 2 episodes a month, which is like good for your schedule, especially because like like I work in this, so it's easier for me to like kind of do this every week. I think like Owen had told me offline, like he didn't realize how like hard it would be to do like it week after week, even though it doesn't seem like it is. It is when you feel like you have to keep up with everything that's going on. And the good thing about this is that most of the movies, there'll be stuff that we chose to rewatch and that we want to cover. It's not about like what came out over the weekend. You don't have to keep up with it like that. So it's going to be a lot easier for us to pick stuff that makes the schedule a bit easier.
Yeah.
And I think it also having like that time in between where like there's the week off, it gives us time to like think about, okay, which one do I really want to go with next? And I also think too, like it'll just kind of keep it a bit more interesting too. Like, I mean, instead of going week after week after week after week, we get to kind of put time into like what we're choosing.
Yeah.
And the only thing,
I just want to say too, I mean, it just, after doing it for, I mean, gosh, almost an entire year, like I just want to give kudos to all of the podcasters out there who continue to do it every single week. I mean, it is just, it's not something that is just an easy, oh, hey, I can just pick up a microphone and create a podcast and it just works like that. I mean, it definitely takes preparation. I just want to put out that I respect all the people that continue to do it week by week. And it's just, it's going to be good for us, I think, to have, like you said, a little bit more time. Sometimes like you record the show and then you kind of get on your day-to-day life and then you have the weekend and then you're like, gosh, wow, I need to kind of revisit all the things that I need to do my homework. Right. So, so it's, and like you said, you had the ability to be surrounded by that consistently throughout the week and during your job. And so, I think that to all the listeners out there, that was something that I struggled with a little bit, just trying to make sure that I was staying relevant. And so, I just think that this is going to be a great opportunity for us to just go back to some of the things that we've always enjoyed, and it's going to be good. And I can't wait to talk about one today. It's one of my favorites.
Yeah, and I what I kind of love about this too is that it won't be just like a simple like movie review. It won't be like, oh, this is what I liked and this is what I didn't like. Like I like, depending on like the week or whatever, like I wrote down some stuff about like the making of the movie to kind of like
Mhm.
keep people interested in that, to like kind of see like what was going on in like 2013 when this movie came out. This movie
Yeah.
that we're going to talk about tonight. And I wanted it to be more than just saying like, oh, this is what I liked about it, and then this is what you liked about it. I wanted to
Yeah.
kind of try to like kind of, if people don't know much about the movie, kind of like
Mhm.
give them a little background about like how it was made, who was involved, kind of what the climate was like when the movie came out. Like, did it get the attention that it deserved?
Mhm.
Did it make as much money as it should have? Did it get surprisingly with this movie, I thought it got much more awards attention, but it really didn't, and that kind of
Yeah.
surprised me. We're gonna talk about that later.
Also,
But yeah,
like what the actors and directors have done since. I think that
yeah,
that's a really cool thing to talk about, kind of seeing the direction that some of these, like I said, actors, directors, that maybe what path and trajectory they've gone in since 2013. I mean, gosh, it's been almost 10 years, which sounds insane
yeah,
to even
it's
say.
crazy. Yeah. So I did answer one of the questions that was sent to me, which was like how the shows are going to be different. Uh, so I think I explained that pretty well enough. Like, this show is just going to be about whatever movie we're discussing. There will be no hot topics. There will be like the banter, like what did you do over the weekend? Like we
Oh
didn't see
yeah,
each other, like we didn't see
we're
each other
still
for real over
we're still friends.
like we didn't for real see each other. Like, oh, what did you
Yeah,
do over
like
the
we've
weekend?
still seen each other pretty much every week since.
Yeah, yeah. That'll still be there, but like honest, like, other than like this first episode that's trying to show you what the show's gonna be about, like we're just gonna jump right into whatever movie that we chose. Now, originally when I thought of it, I was gonna have Owens just choosing it so I can be like, all right, he'll tell me what to watch and I'll watch it. But then he told me that he thought it would be better if we switched off, and
Yeah,
I think that probably is. I think that is kind of beneficial because we probably will pick like completely different things. Uh,
yeah. I also
for,
think too. I mean, we both have we do enjoy a lot of the same movies, but
yeah.
we also have very sometimes different reasons for enjoying them, or maybe I've seen some things that you haven't seen, which I mean I highly doubt, but
Sure, there's something.
maybe
There's
like
something.
yeah, but also some stuff that, I mean, when you showed me 25th Hour, I mean that
Yeah,
that was something that I hadn't gotten around to seeing and I didn't really know much about, but I mean, it's an amazing experience to see that movie, and now it's in a still one of my favorites that you've shown me. So
yeah.
yeah, I wanted to give the benefit of the doubt to you as well. I mean, as much as the selfish part of myself would love to say I
Like,
would
could
pick
I
every
pick
single
all these?
pick every single week. I think that it's going to be good for us to explore some other options.
Yeah, I think so too. So one of the questions, which is funny because I actually sent this to you when we were talking about it, was, are we only going to deep dive serious movies, like hard hitting serious movies? And I think I messaged you like a couple weeks ago. Are we going to only do that, or is it be fun down the line just to like pick something that is kind of ridiculous? And you were
Yeah.
like, I think everything should be up for grabs. Like it doesn't always have to be like a prestige film or like a former awards contender.
Well, it's funny
um
because the actor that's in The Prestige is in the one we're talking about, and the one we're talking about is a very serious movie. So it
it's a
is
very serious movie.
the
Yeah,
first one that
yeah,
we're doing is along those lines.
yeah,
But I
a very
mean,
serious movie. Yeah.
yeah,
But yeah,
but there's so many movies out there that are critically acclaimed, and I mean, I think that especially comedies are so
no,
difficult to make, especially today in today's climate,
yeah,
that a lot of them, even in the past, have not gotten the recognition that they deserve.
yeah,
And yeah, I mean, there's no like, you can't necessarily win an Oscar for a comedy, which is crazy. So
I
like,
know it's very
I
rare.
think, yeah, I think we should leave everything up for grabs. And I also would love to see maybe some people who are commenting or listening and say, hey, if there's like maybe just a silly movie, or I mean, my sister even has a list on her phone for bad movie night. Like she wants to have a list for things where it's like, listen, the reason that this movie's good is because it's bad.
Right, that's true. Another interesting question. Well, this is interesting. Do you think that you will always agree on the movies that you pick? As far as like, did you like it or did I like it? I think what would be interesting is, it could happen down the line that he chooses something and I watch it and I'm like, oh, that wasn't really for me, but like it'd be a fun
Yeah.
discussion to have, like why it wasn't, and like vice versa
Mhm.
too. So like I don't think the goal all the time is to pick the same things that we both like,
Yeah.
because I think that sometimes I might just be like, hey, like I don't think you've seen this, like you should check this one out and we should do this one
Yeah.
next. I think that's a possibility. I think 9 times out of 10 that might happen where it's like, yeah, we both really enjoyed it, but that's not the intention. To always pick something that like I know we both like, or he knows that I'm gonna like
Yeah.
too. I think there,
Mhm.
actually, I think it'd be more interesting, like if that did happen, where it was like, oh yeah, I didn't, you loved it, I didn't, but yeah, I think that
Yeah.
would be an interesting thing to do.
No, I mean it
Uh,
just sparks an interesting and different conversation rather than just this is what it was. Oh yeah, I enjoyed that too. Like yes, there we can talk about all the different antics and stuff, and but yeah, having some opinions that are different is going to always makes for a more interesting conversation.
yeah. Next question was, are you only deep diving movies? I'll get my answer, and then you can tell me what you kind of think about this. I don't mind. I wanted to start with the movies because that's a little easier to do. I
Hmm.
don't mind like doing something special down the line where you deep dive a show, but it would have to be something probably we both have watched before. To
Yeah.
look back like a TV show. I mean, I don't mind doing that, and I think it would be kind of cool to do that. But I think for
Hmm.
the most part, it will just be movies. But we did talk about this before, that another angle that we might do on the show is like deep diving an actual like actor or actress's like filmography as a whole, like
Hmm. Yeah.
looking at kind of like where they kind of hit, where they maybe miss, all that kind of stuff with their career. And I think that'll be an interesting thing to do too.
Yeah.
But yeah, it'll mostly be movies, but
Yeah.
there's some wiggle room for other stuff.
Exactly. I mean, if we were going to deep dive a show, I mean, it's hard to get an entire show in 2 weeks worth, especially
Right.
if there's something that's a long
Yeah.
season or just like a long runtime, whatever it is. But I mean, in the I would probably say if we did go down that route, it would probably be something like miniseries. So like
Yeah, like a limited series or something
yeah,
like
limited
that.
series
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
Chernobyl or like
Yeah.
even in just like season one True Detective or something like that. Like if we
All
just
right.
kind of
Dahmer.
decided to do exactly. So I
Yeah. Yeah.
think that would be definitely up for grabs, but I would love there's a lot of movies out there that we haven't done. So I think
Yeah.
that should be our starting point.
Well, yeah, I think that's the cool thing because there's so many things we can pick from. Like it's like
Yeah.
I think that's what's cool about this is that it's kind of endless. It kind of can go like there's so many different things that we can choose, and that's what
Yeah,
kind of makes it
exactly.
exciting.
Hmm.
Um, Another question: will we ever have guests? And I I think to start, until we get into a groove, it'll just be us.
Yeah.
Um, I'm
We're
open
finding
to
our
guests.
footing.
Yeah, I'm open to guests though, but I'm kind of filling this out like live with you right now. But if we
Yeah.
did have guests, if we did have guests, I would only want it to be maybe one other person, so there's only three.
Yeah.
So it kind of keeps the conversation like tight a
Agreed.
little bit. Um,
Agreed.
Not that I love having a bunch of people on that. It is fun, but like
Yeah.
when you're trying to concentrate and talk about like one movie, it gets a little hard when there's like 6 or 7 people like
Yep.
throw it in. I loved it today. We did one for Screen 2 before I recorded this, and there were 3 guests on, so 4 of us, and that was still like a lot because everyone
Yeah.
was like excited to talk about it.
Yeah, of
Uh,
course.
but like, yeah, I think with like if we do have guests, it'll be 3 and like just the 3 people, like you and me, and then someone, and then um, I'm totally open to that because I think like it would be good to kind of hear other people's uh perspective on what we're diving into. But I think we're gonna find like our groove first, and then kind of uh look into that. But definitely open to it because we've loved having guests on before in the
Yeah.
past. So
No, I'd love to have Donnie back and talk about a movie with him. Like I always enjoy his input. So
yeah,
just maybe even having some repeat guests on too.
yeah, that'd be a lot of fun. And let's see. Oh well, will Owen appear on the main show? Okay, so the main show is separate. It is a week to week thing. Uh, it is a lot different than this is going to be. Um, he always has a spot on the main show if he wants to like contribute to the main show, but I think this is going to be something that we're going to keep our focus on with him here. Um, which like I said, he's more than welcome to always appear on the main show if he wants to. And of course, I think whenever the main show hits a milestone, he'll be on it. Like we hit 100 episodes, he'll be on that episode
Oh
because
yeah.
even though because this is still part of the Back to the Blockbuster like brand, it's not like a separate thing. So
Yeah.
like it is a different show, but it's under the same umbrella.
Mhm.
Like his right way to put it, right?
And there's stuff coming. Then there's new current stuff and hot takes that I will definitely want to come in. And so if there's something that I know you're covering, then I'll definitely pop into my secured spot.
Yep, for sure. And so now we can tell them what movie we chose as the first film, just in time for the
Yeah,
holiday season. We picked a very light, very light
lighthearted.
drama.
Yeah, very lighthearted movie. Yeah.
Well,
So
this is your pick, so like you can throw it out
yeah.
there.
No, definitely. So the first movie that we're going to be doing is Prisoners, 2013, Jake Gyllenhaal. It's directed by Denis Villeneuve. It also has Hugh Jackman in it. Basically, it is the story of the abduction of two children from two separate families that are close. They're abducted, I guess it's Thanksgiving Day.
Thanksgiving Day,
Thanksgiving Day, which actually is a holiday. I guess, is it a holiday movie? No.
Well, no, it was kind of funny because like I was like, what are some really good Thanksgiving movies? And someone sent me Prisoners, and I hadn't watched it until like I watched it today again for the first time in a while. Yeah. And I was like, I totally forgot it took place on Thanksgiving. That made that joke a lot more funny now.
I know, gosh, yeah. I was just thinking like, because we just had Thanksgiving with our families, and so just thinking about something so traumatic happening on that day is just terrifying. But I mean, the first time I saw this movie, it was actually a recommendation from one of my good friends, and basically they said, if I haven't seen it, you have to see it. It is gripping. It's like it's not brutal necessarily. It's very just like disturbing in some moments, I would say.
Yeah, definitely has some moments.
Yeah, it's one of those movies that after I finished, I had like a chill run down my spine, and like I locked my doors before like double locked my doors before going to bed. So I really think that this movie, and knowing now too that it's directed by Denis Villeneuve or Denis Villeneuve, whatever you want to say it. I can't say it in my French accent, but just he has produced some of my favorite movies of all time. I know I've talked about Arrival so often, but like just seeing his directing standpoint in this movie just makes me like it even more. I think that it's such a great concept about really leaving things super ambiguous. And there's just always this notion of like, you are not really even sure. Obviously there's a twist at the end that we'll go over. But there's just like, you're kind of constantly changing your mindset about every single one of the characters. And I think that just shows how the human emotion really works. And it's like, yes, you might have this standpoint at a certain time, but then certain choices that people make are going to change your opinion about them and what they really do and who they really are as a person. And I think that you can see that within the characters, like even they are wondering about their choices and trying to figure out like what's important to them. And it's just one of those movies that has just been kind of like, I've taken the mantle of my friend who, like, anytime I'm recommending a movie, I say, hey, if you haven't seen Prisoners, you definitely got to check it out. It's a really good one.
Yeah, I saw this in theaters when it came out because I'm not afraid to like tell my friends like, let's go see this, and they like read the synopsis and they're like, why do you really want to see this?
Damn, man. Yeah.
it's like we go to the movies to escape. You clearly don't. But like I was like, I can't pass up seeing something like this. Like, trailer for this movie was really good too. It does a lot without giving too much away. And then I couldn't, like, the cast is just stacked with like talent. Like it's
really stacked. It's crazy.
Like you said, Jake Gyllenhaal, Hugh Jackman, Terrence Howard, Viola Davis, Melissa Leo.
Yep.
Like
Paul Dano.
Paul Dano. There are, I think, 2 Oscar winners, Viola Davis and Melissa Leo. Hugh Jackman's been nominated. Jake Gyllenhaal's been nominated. And like, so you have that like already. Yeah. And like, Gosh, like,
and what's I need to figure out what's the name of that actor who plays the super creepy guy. He's in Dark Knight. David Dastmalchian.
Yeah, his face is he has
the
face ever.
Quintessential, like, if you need a creepy character, you cast him. And he was actually for anyone who doesn't know who I'm talking about, if you've seen The Suicide Squad, the newer one, he's the what's his character? He's the one who shoots he's the weird one. The weird one that is trying to kill his mom, basically. He shoots out dots. Polka Dot Man. That's what it is.
Yeah, and it's funny because like when I was watching it tonight, I forgot how creepy he was, and he just has a
Oh my
creepy face in
gosh.
general. I'm sure he's a very nice man in
Yeah,
real life.
he's
In real
probably
life,
this like the nicest
Real
guy
life.
ever. But
But like,
just
it's not
like
just it's the face and then the hoodie, and like it's the whole look that makes him look pretty
well,
creepy.
he has this sort of like sunken eyes and like his features are kind of skeletal in
Yeah,
turn
yeah,
like he just looks like he's up to no good. Like no
yeah,
matter what, especially if it involves children, like I would not trust that man around any child. Like it
yeah.
just he just has a gives off a weird vibe.
Yeah. So I felt the same way about it when I first saw it. I thought like right away, and oh, by the way, those few friends that we went with that were like, "Why are we seeing this?" They ended up loving it too.
Of course. Of course.
It's a hard watch. I mean, like it's not like you said, there are moments of brutality. I mean, like a couple, and then there's
Serious,
some
yeah.
yeah, but I think the stuff that's implied is what makes things a little bit more uncomfortable, especially when you're
Yeah.
dealing with like child abduction, like
Hmm.
possible child murder, and then all the stuff that goes along with like child abduction, like because that falls into like child abuse and like there's other
Yeah.
implications in it that make it a bit like more disturbing than what you're
Yeah.
actually like seeing play out on screen.
Because it's not a slasher. I mean, it's not like there's blood everywhere, and it's not like they're like it's just insanely realistic in terms of like that's why I think I was so scared by it or
Yeah,
thrilled, I guess, in terms of it being a thrilling drama.
yeah,
Um, it's just insanely realistic in terms of like the reactions of the characters, especially Hugh Jackman's like playing the dad, but
yeah.
also like how the children were abducted and the sort of mental state of Paul Dano's character
Those kids.
who was also abducted and like
Yeah,
seeing how like that can traumatically change an entire person's life, like what they've gone through. I
yep,
just think that like it takes a very good take at a realistic reaction of an abduction and what especially like a very Christian man would go to any
any
lengths
lengths. Yeah.
to save them.
Yeah, and what I love, like, because like in real life, if this would have happened, if you're like, because when you watch like true crime stuff about child abduction and all
Mhm.
this stuff, they always talk about how like it was a basically a seemingly normal day until
Yep.
like it wasn't. So this movie starts like as a seemingly normal day. These two families just getting together on Thanksgiving, and like what I
It's a
like that
tradition. I'm guessing they've probably done this many times
all the time.
before. Yeah.
Yeah,
They
with
live
no
close enough that
problem.
the daughters do go over to each other's houses
Uh,
unattended. Like this
right.
is just any other normal situation.
Right. And I love what the director does, like, because there's a lot of moments like this. Like, there's a lot of moments of just like stillness and quiet where there's not like a lot of like the score is not intrusive. There's just like
Yeah.
you're just taking in like the atmosphere of like the neighborhood that they live in, and kind of like it makes it feel like you are watching something that's real. Like
Hmm.
like you're kind of like stuck in this moment with these people. At no moment when I was watching the movie felt like I was watching Hugh Jackman or Terrence Howard or Viola Davis.
Yeah.
Maria Bello plays Hugh Jackman's wife. Like I never got the impression that I was watching actors. Like they
Yeah,
felt like
exactly.
they felt like real characters.
They
And
did.
yeah, and of course like
And
things.
I like what you said about like unassuming too, because
Yep.
just the scene of the neighborhood, you could tell it's like a place where people walk their dogs all the time. Like kids go over to each other's houses. Like it just seems like a very normal suburban. I'm guessing Midwest, I think, because
Yeah.
it's pretty snowy towards the
Yep.
end.
Yeah.
Just like Midwest town that like people have been living in for generations and families and everything like that. So that just makes it even more like, how could this happen? How is this
Right.
happening to them?
Right. And what's it's interesting too because we get thrown into like once the girls go missing, we get thrown in right away into like you know Paul Dano. It seems his character. It seems like Alex is the one who has done this, right?
Yeah.
And like what I liked about it because again, like if you watch a lot of true crime stuff, they always talk about how like especially small towns when stuff like this happens, they need to blame someone. They need to figure out who did this. And if it's obvious to them, they feel like that's the guy. Like, why aren't you going after him? Like that is the guy that you're supposed to be. It's clear to us that he did it. And
Hmm.
there's this like, making someone a criminal long before you have any proof.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
but what Hugh Jackman characters need, all he needs were those like couple of moments of what he said to him in the parking lot,
Yep.
and which I mean, I guess anybody in like his position would assume the
Yeah.
worst, hearing something
Hmm.
like that. And
Yeah.
then it's of course him like hearing him sing the song that his daughters were singing on
Yep.
Thanksgiving. So that's all he needs to like for him to
That's his
believe.
proof.
Like
That's his
his
proof.
proof. That's all the proof that he needs. And what's interesting too is he. I mean, what I like about the movie is that it's not just the whodunit, right? There's all these different like themes going on, like
hmm
and then also each character is dealing with the grief of this in very
Different ways. Very, very
different
different
ways.
ways.
Like, you know, Hugh Jackman is like his character is clearly desperate
Desperate and
and
angry at everything.
and unhinged at this point.
Mhm.
You know, his wife decides to like drown herself in like pills and like doing all that stuff. Like she's
Mhm.
barely alive, but I think she's doing that because like there's moments where they walk in on her and she's just like crying in her bedroom, like she's just
despair.
like can't really,
Absolute
like,
despair.
Utter despair. And then you have Terrence Howard's character who like they kind of build up as like a pushover a little bit compared to like
Definitely, yeah.
Hugh Jackman's character.
He just feels kind of
kinda-
helpless. Like I feel like his character, he's just like, I don't really know what to do. I'm trying to trust the police, but then like this other guy that's like obviously seems to have some very like believable ideas
right.
and is like very like he takes the lead and he takes like his force and is very assertive.
Right.
So like how is he not gonna, I mean, his daughter's missing too. How is he not
Right,
gonna
exactly.
be like, yeah, like I actually do want to know, but he definitely would not have done anything like that by himself. He
Not at all. And
Hugh Jackman's character to instigate
push
it.
it. And I like what he says to him at that point where like at this point Viola Davis also knows that they're keeping him hostage, and he basically says like to him like, I know what you think of me, but I would like die for my daughter. So he almost, I can feel like he feels that like they think that he hasn't done enough or would do
He's
enough.
trying to defend himself. Yeah.
But I like that they show all the different stages and different types of grief that would happen in a situation like this. Like Viola Davis's character is somewhere in the middle, right? Like she's not completely angry and unhinged. She's not like that. But like she has that line in the car when they get back to the house and she's like, we're not gonna help him kill him, but we're not gonna stop him either.
Yeah.
And like so she's kind of like yeah, what I saw was
like
pretty
guilty
devastating.
By association, technically.
Yeah. But we're gonna let him do what he needs to do in order to find our kids.
I mean, they could have let Paul Dano go. Like in that moment, they could have done
in that moment where he tells him like, if you want to let him go, let him go. Yeah. And then like I think Terrence Howard goes up to the thing to like start to open it, and she's like, think about her daughter, and then he kind of stops and doesn't let him go. I forgot how intense the scene is. I mean, actually several scenes are, but once he kind of reveals to Terrence Howard, like, all right, I have him. I'm holding him somewhere, and I'm gonna get him.
Okay,
to talk.
Do you want to do a little backstory before?
So
it's like basically after Thanksgiving, the daughters go to the house to find this whistle that she's lost, and it's basically like a safety whistle. It's red, and they go to look for it. They don't come back. The brother has tried to get them off this RV. And so like they've seen the RV, the brother knows about it. When they get back, the RV's gone, the girls are gone. Jake Gyllenhaal gets called. He's the detective, and then he finds the RV with Paul Dano. Paul Dano runs from him, crashes it, and then gets arrested. They tell Hugh Jackman. He basically says, that's the guy. He obviously like, I can tell that was him. And then, but they don't have the evidence to convict him. So they release him. There's nothing that they can charge him for. He didn't do anything. He's not saying anything to the cops. And so they release him. And then he's supposed to be under surveillance. Jake Gyllenhaal, the cop as Loki, wants to make sure that he's being watched, but he's not. When Paul Dano's walking his dog, Hugh Jackman points a gun at him, abducts him, and then basically so he's at the police station when he assaults him, basically saying, I know you did this, and he's getting released. He says, Paul Dano's character says, he's like, they stopped laughing when I last saw them, or what was the exact?
I think it's like they stopped crying when I left, or something like that.
Yeah, when I left, they stopped crying. So that's basically proof in and of itself that he's seen them. He knows where they are. And so when he's back home walking his dog, Hugh Jackman abducts him and starts to basically interrogate him.
And by interrogate, beat him to a boat. Well,
so it starts tied to a radiator and gets beaten. Yeah,
and it starts very briefly, not too bad, like almost like, I don't want to hurt you, like just tell me what I need to know, like, and then it quickly like turns into something completely different. And just I know they're actors and like that's the job, but like I'm just trying to imagine shooting some of that stuff.
Yeah,
Had to be truly intense because I feel like Hugh Jackman just like
terrifying.
I don't think he's method. I mean, I've never heard him talk about being a method actor at
Definitely
all.
not. No.
But like he was on a whole another level here, and
Well,
like like that moment where he has like the hammer
yeah, that's
and
the scene that
like
I was going to talk about.
yeah, like
I just think like
insane.
I honestly think Terrence Howard's acting in that, even though he has no lines, just
His
shows I
reaction
think
is like
basically the audience's reaction. Like he's
yeah,
holding him as the guy's getting beaten, and even Hugh Jackman saying he's like, listen, I don't want to do this.
want to
It's
do
gonna
this.
stop. Like I seriously like why won't you tell me? I'm so confused because like do you want to get beaten up? You're making me do something that's not me. I'm turning into this bad person, and then I think just the scene of him getting up and going to hammer, you can just see
Yeah,
Terrence Howard just kind of be like, oh my gosh, like what is
yeah,
he gonna do?
yeah.
And like,
I was wincing because like he has him up against the wall after he's like basically beat him in the face, and then he places his hand down. So I
on
was
the
like, God, he's
faucet.
gonna, oh, the faucet. I was like, and my initial thought, even when I first saw it, like almost 10 years
Yeah.
ago, I was like, he's gonna like crack his fucking fingers off. And like,
Yeah.
I hope they don't show that. Like that's what it builds up to. But then like, there's just all this like unhinged rage, like where
Yeah. He
he's just
starts
basically like
smashing the sink around it.
fake.
He
Yeah, yeah.
because I don't even think at that point he's ready to do what he does later.
Yeah,
Like
exactly.
he's
Yeah,
basically like, I'll hit you and I'm just like basically beating you up for kidnapping my daughters. But then it just turns into like at that moment, I think that's when he starts to become unhinged. Like
yeah,
that is when his character's like, listen, I
yeah.
will do anything and I could care less
What happens to you?
what I have to do to someone else.
Yeah, and I also want to point out too, like, what also feels very true to life is like before he kidnaps him and all that, and he's talking to Jake Gyllenhaal, and they're going through that whole discussion about how they gave them lie detector tests because
Hmm.
usually in a situation like that they do like look at the family like
Yeah.
first, and he's basically like, well, did you give him one? And that's when Jake Gyllenhaal is like, he has like the mental capabilities of like a 10-year-old. So like
Hmm.
Jake Gyllenhaal doesn't even think that he could even abduct two little girls.
Yeah, exactly.
And if it did happen, he didn't do it by himself.
Hmm.
And like that's like kind of like, I mean, like Jake Gyllenhaal already has like doubts about it, but like it just shows how like Hugh Jackman's character already is just like no, like almost like he needs that to be the guy because
Yeah.
he wants to find his daughter like right away, and
Well,
like
I
he
think
believes
there's such a great parallel too between. I mean, it's the reason that Jake Gyllenhaal is such a great supporting actor in that is because like he's never not solved the case. Like they
right,
build his character up as like he's solved everything he has. He's an ace detective. He's trusted. And he'll also do whatever it takes to solve a case. So it's like they're both on sort of these similar paths of
yeah,
like they will do whatever it takes to make sure they get the final result that they're looking for. But it's obviously on both have very different beliefs because I mean the law it shows sometimes that I mean parents are sitting there at every single waking minute of the day wondering where their child is, and
it
it's
is,
probably just so awful and traumatic and whatever it is. But there's honestly only so much the police can do at a certain amount of time. Like they can
yep,
canvass, they can ask questions, they can follow leads, but unless they know where they are, then they can't just go and find them. So like I seeing sort of that like why aren't you doing more? That's got to
right,
be a very realistic thing that
yeah.
parents go through when something like this happens.
And it also shows where police like fuck up too. Like when he
Yeah.
makes that comment to him, like you were supposed to be surveilling him. Like why weren't you surveilling him? And they're basically like, well, we don't have enough money to like just look after like
Yeah. Like,
people
what do you
like
think
that.
we are? Like, yeah,
And
this isn't
and
the
then he was
CIA.
like, yeah, and then he was like, all I need you to do is like if you would have told me that something changed, like something was different, that you suddenly weren't surveilling him anymore. He's like, I would have done it myself. Like I would have like stayed up all night and like looked out, for him,
Mhm.
like watch out for him. And I thought that was interesting too. It does show like why like sometimes people in this situation are not completely trusting of like law enforcement because like
Yeah.
they feel like they're not doing everything they can do to
Even when some people are like, there's
yeah,
definitely
yeah,
like people
like Jake
within the
Gyllenhaal's
force,
character is, and like, but
everything.
like,
He's you
yeah,
can tell he's putting in 20-hour days to try
yeah,
and get this stuff fixed.
yeah, and and he's an interesting character too because like you basically have to like kind of fill in the dots about like him and his personality, and like, and I think that's the case with like a lot of movies like this, where like you don't necessarily learn everything about the detective working the case, but you
Hmm.
can kind of like assume like what their personality would be like.
Yeah.
I think you kind of mentioned earlier that like, he's been just completely dedicated to his work,
Yeah,
and like
he like the first scene you see him, he's sitting in an empty diner alone.
they're
It's probably
home.
2:30 in the morning. And
Yeah,
like you can tell he probably doesn't really have a lot of friends. He doesn't
yeah,
talk to anyone on the force. He does everything by himself because he probably has this mentality of if I'm not going to do it, if I don't do it, it's not going to get done right. And
right.
so like he's just a career man dedicated to this thing, and he's invested his entire life to
Yeah,
becoming what he is there, but he doesn't have anyone. And that's
right.
so crazy to see next to Hugh Jackman, who has everything, but it's taken from him. So it's
Yeah,
like it's so
yeah,
crazy to kind of see that like parallel. It's just
yeah.
such a really brilliantly written story.
It is. I mean, like someone said that like I was reading like a review and I'm like kind of paraphrasing it that like all the characters are kind of like prisoners in their own right. Like they were even saying like Jake
Yeah.
Gyllenhaal is like a prisoner to his job and like to like and like he like has like kind of isolated himself a little
Hmm.
bit. And like I didn't know this like the writer Aaron Skurkowski.
Somethingowski.
Yeah,
Some
he it's based on
something.
a short yeah, it's based on a short story that he wrote. And like he also loosely based a short story on like The Telltale Heart by Edgar Allan Poe.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there are shades of that, and especially when like after Hugh Jackman decides to like board up Alex instead of
Yeah.
like he's like I can't like if I do anything else to him I'm gonna kill him. I can't like physically harm him anymore. Um, but like Hugh Jackman is getting so like out of control that he's just basically like tell me something, and like he's like I feel like he's starting to like hear things and go like just go
He's
completely out
yeah.
of his mind. and
Hmm.
and it's also because he's keeping this well keeping this big secret. He has told like he has told Terrence Howard's character, he has told Viola Davis' character, but he completely starts neglecting the wife
His
who
wife and
he
his kid, his whole
his
family.
kids who he should be like. I thought that was interesting too. That like he's been spending so like actually eventually both of them being spending so much time going back and forth to like try to get this confession out of them that they have completely like that's why I think this stuff is good with the the creepy guy breaking into the house because Viola Davis is daughter and stuff is alone in the house while they're basically trying to interrogate Alex
Yeah.
when they should be at home looking
Yeah.
after their the daughter that's there. And then
The
Hugh
people that
Jackman
are still in their
yeah,
lives. Yeah.
and Hugh Jackman should be like tending to his wife who's like basically medicating herself
I
because
know.
she's so like grief stricken. And it just kind of shows like kind of like priorities kind of change when you have like tunnel vision, like when you're
But then
just
also
like
the progression of like when he's like boarding him up,
yeah,
it's like you can see the uncertainty in his head where he's like, I was so certain that this was the guy, he knows something,
yeah,
and then he's still not getting anything. And it's
thing.
like I think he starts to realize that either he made a mistake, and I mean that's why he goes to the aunt's house at the end,
Yeah,
obviously
yeah.
to apologize.
To apologize. Yeah.
And like because he's trying to like pay for his sins or his transgressions, whatever it is.
Yeah.
But it's like you can kind of see his own thought process of like, oh my gosh, this is maybe not the right choice. And then we see it directly parallel in Jake Gyllenhaal when he smashes his keyboard at the
Yeah.
because he's just like completely frustrated with like, how is this not the guy?
Guy.
Like
Yeah.
I was gonna get an answer out of him and now he can't. It's
Yeah.
kind of the exact same as Hugh Jackman. He's like, why didn't I get this answer? I know there's something there, but like I don't know what it is.
Yeah. I was actually gonna ask you, like, do you think that Hugh Jackman never quite always knew? Or like it was there just a moment where he was like, I now don't think this is the guy, but I've gone too far and this
Yeah.
is where we're at.
The thing that was just like that I kept thinking about while I was watching it, it's like his reasons for kidnapping him were, I know you know something.
Right.
Not necessarily like, you know where my daughters are, like you're the one who kidnapped them. He's like, you have information that will lead directly to the safe return of my daughter, which is true. I mean, he's not
Yeah.
wrong. So like,
Right.
like in all reality, everything he did was truthful. His reasonings were correct, I guess. But
Yeah.
like he just went about it in such a crazy way with someone who is not mentally able to even give up that information, especially under severe stress.
Yeah, exactly. The most severe stress.
Yeah. And it's crazy because then he does give him an answer, like, you'll find your daughters in the maze. And it's like, that's just even more cryptic than no answer at all.
Exactly. So it makes it worse. He's like,
where's the maze? And then that just gives him an even more a glimmer of hope that's going to continue for him to want to interrogate him more.
Yeah, I agree. I think for me, when he was boarding him up, I felt like at that point he was like, I don't know for sure anymore.
Mm-hmm. If this but I've already gone too far.
I've gone too far. But I do think it's interesting how he kind of deflects, like when Terrence Howard tells him about the other guy, the composite sketch, like they think it might be this other dude. Mm-hmm. And then that's not even enough information. He's like, yeah, they're working together. Like, it's not enough that this could be another guy that did it on his own.
He's still right.
He's still right. And the other reason I think he kind of doubts himself once he starts boarding him up is when Terrence Howard's like, you don't know if this is the right guy. And he's like, I do know. And he says like, no, you don't. And he's like, I do. And he's like, no, I know you. I know that you don't know if this is the right guy. Yeah. And that's when I kind of I think in that moment, he really doesn't.
No.
If it is or not.
He's questioning everything.
It's already gone too far. And I do want to move a little bit ahead. When Viola Davis first goes and sees him, first of all, that first image of him when she takes the sack off of his head, and he is completely just bloodied and bloated, and his eyes look
like when you see him getting beat up originally, you're like, wow, that's bad. But then that second image is just, you can't even recognize him.
Right. And I thought it was interesting too, because Hugh Jackman's character has gone to these violent lengths to get answers. And then she goes the opposite, which is emotional and nurturing, which is why she unties him. Mm-hmm. Basically trying to whatever he might have, whatever he might have.
She's like the good cop. Like, I'm going to help you get out of this. Yeah. Just please.
And honestly, in a movie with so many good people in it. And I know and we'll talk a little bit about especially Hugh Jackman in this, as far as the performance, the supporting people are very good too. They all I think that in that moment for her, that's probably her strongest moment, where she's just kind of please.
Well, it makes her feel like she's underutilized sometimes.
Yeah, and
their performances are so good. Yeah.
Yeah, she's an Oscar winner, right? But for a while, she was kind of a supporting player a lot. Mm-hmm. And I know what a good supporting actor should do is kind of prop up the leads. And I think that a lot of these people do, but they should be recognized for their moments too. You pointed out that whole thing with Terrence Howard, him just reacting and not saying a word when
was exactly I was like, I'm Terrence Howard.
yeah, pretty much. Moment. And Maria Bello, who plays Hugh Jackman's wife, also is just really, really, I buy into her. That scene where Jake Gyllenhaal, after the guy breaks into their house and mm-hmm. sneaks out, and she's basically telling him this one, I heard this noise and now this window's open, and she can tell he's not because he can tell that something's wrong with her. She's clearly mm-hmm. She's not herself. And then he looks over at the table and sees all the pill bottles, and she's like, why aren't you writing this down? Mm-hmm. But I guess the good thing about that scene is when they go in the basement and he kind of realizes he's looking around, and there's lie everywhere, and then he's and I think it kind of comes to him too, why are you here alone this late? Where's your husband? Where's her husband? Yeah. Where's her husband? And she's like, well, he's off helping the police find her daughter. And he's like,
I'm the police.
But he's thinking himself no, he's not. Whatsoever. And she was and he always out this late. He's yeah, when he's looking for her. And then that's when he puts together
he's whoa, something's
we haven't seen Alex in a bit. And
we also haven't seen him in a while, Keller.
Oh, him in a while, yeah. And I love the scene where he follows him.
The argument in the car, man, is
and that, and it was funny too. That scene where he follows him is tense, even though it doesn't seem like it should be that tense. But you have they have the trash truck behind him that starts honking, and then he turns around and is oh wait, I know who that is, and then he makes a beeline back to the liquor store to make it look like he was just gonna go get alcohol or whatever.
Yeah,
and how I'm thinking the scene's gonna play out when I first saw it is that Jake Gyllenhaal is just gonna give up, fuck, I fucked up tailing him this time, I'm just gonna go. But he sits there and waits for him to walk back to the car, and he's why are you following me? He's get in the car. He doesn't even where were you going?
It's also I thought that I think it's not only just the acting, but the writing as well in that scene. Hugh Jackman's very believable, but also just a little bit enough of he's already been seen doing some sketchy things. So when he asks him about Alex, his answer is very good. It's like, oh, I don't know. He's guilty. I know he's guilty. You know, I think he's guilty. He probably left town.
Yeah.
So he's like defending himself, but also giving him pretty good answers to not suspect him. And also, I think he sort of acts more angry than he is in a certain moment to kind of throw off the scent, and then he gets actually angry. And then he actually gets where he's like, no, seriously, like I was pretending, but seriously, why aren't you doing this? Like, why aren't you doing more? Which makes it even more believable. It's a really great scene that shows sort of a awkward interaction that turns into just an emotionally charged, like,
dude, when he starts like yelling and he's like, and so excuse me if I'm not going home to like get a good night's sleep, and he just starts yelling at him. Like it's so real and it's so visceral, and like you said, it does the argument does start off one way where it's like trying to deflect, and then it becomes it's like an interrogation
kind of. It's like, hey, what are you doing? Oh, I'm doing this, I'm lying. And then it just turns into, like you said, just visceral and real. And
like even Loki knows, like, okay, like this is gone, like, oh, it's too far. We can pump the brakes for like a second. That scene, like, that's Hugh Jackman's like strongest scene, I think. And I mean, there's a lot of strong scenes.
Yeah. Like, I mean, even just, I think the best moment of it too was like, yes, I know you're working on it and you're doing a lot and you're doing it, but at the end of the day, she's expecting me to save her. I'm her dad. Like, she's expecting me to walk in there, and why hasn't, like, she's wondering why I haven't yet. Yeah. And like you can do whatever you want, but I'm the dad. It's my responsibility. I lost my daughter. So he's feeling blame. He's feeling guilt. He's feeling upset. Gosh, it's crazy to see that. It's all really in 30
all
seconds.
In one. Yeah, and it's also crazy too. I know you touched on like the religious aspect of that character too, but like that is a conflict as well, right? You have like this like Christian man who like inherently wants to do good. I mean, that's like, you know, and even people like that get pushed like to the brink where it's like, you know, who knows what you'll do if, like, you know, your daughter goes missing.
I mean, and you see him sort of lose his faith. Like, I think that was like the kind of the arc of that part is like, you see him lose his faith and what he believes in. Like, how could this happen to me? I mean, that's the whole reason that they abducted the children. Like like that's they're trying to get back at God for taking their own son. And so it's like that religious aspect. And then you see him, like, obviously in the final scene, he's praying for like basically trying to return his faith. And I think that is such a sort of very, very subtle moment, like part of the movie that I didn't realize until probably my second or third watch.
Yeah. So when I first saw it, I knew in my head, like in my heart, I was like, okay, it's too obvious for it to be Alex. Like that. I mean, it's
a red herring right off the bat.
Right off the bat, right? Even though, I mean, and they play up, like, kudos to Paul Dano, who always plays weird people. He's a really good actor, and also I've seen him in interviews. He's normal. I mean, he like, I think he just has a look.
He also has that look too. Yeah, he's not as creepy as the other guy, but he just still play, like, even his character in There Will Be Blood is just like a little weird.
Yeah, I also thought it was funny that they have him singing like Jingle Bells, Batman Spells, Robin Lady Nick, because he eventually will play the Riddler in the Batman.
Crazy.
So like,
I didn't even think about it like that.
I was like, when I was watching, I was like, oh, like, you manifested that for yourself.
Yeah,
good for you.
He definitely did.
But yeah, like, so like Paul Dano's just so, like, the character, I guess, is just so weird, right? So I was like, that's too obvious but I really didn't know like where it was going though.
No. I mean, they make it very obvious that Jake Gyllenhaal thinks it's Brad.
Right.
But like, I am still a little bit uncertain about that whole thing too. Like the mazes, I know he's just like a creepy guy, and like that's just kind of what he steals children's clothes, and like there's a pig's head in his sink. And like there's like he's just a weird, like, very messed up person.
Red herring number 2. Yeah.
Exactly. But like like the mazes and like all of these, like the book and everything. He's obviously suicidal. Like he doesn't want to, like he does kill himself, and it's just like that whole thing was just such a, and I think that's why Jake Gyllenhaal reacted the way that he did. It's so utterly confusing, and like there's no end to it. And like as you can tell in Jake Gyllenhaal's character, he needs an ending. He needs something to be closed, finished, wipe your hands off, it's done. I solved it. There's no more leads to find.
Right.
And that is just it just halts everything, and you just really have no idea where to go from there. Yeah. So it's like when I first saw it too, I was like, fuck, like what's gonna happen? Like who did it? I have no idea.
Yeah. So in my head, I was
there's only a few characters. They don't really introduce a whole lot of people.
In my head, I was like, who's left, right? And then I totally forgot about Melissa Leo playing Holly, because like she's not in it a lot.
She's unassuming.
It's unassuming, right? And like so you kind of forget about her. Yeah. And even when we were like they were gearing up to it, I was like, I was like, well, I mean, I guess it would make sense because she's connected to Alex. But it wasn't just that, like, what they did that was really good. It wasn't just about like, all right, she was a part of this, but it was like how like this happened, like all the stuff with Alex and all this stuff that happened before with like other people, and that was what was surprising to me. More than like the who did it, it was the who and the like why. Yeah. And like all of it that kind of came together with that. And like a lot of these movies can fall apart when they reveal like the motive and like whatever this is.
It could have been very easy, like, really?
Yeah.
Like I kind of like, that's where you went.
Yeah, but it happens so like organically and that like where you're just like, oh, like you totally buy it. Like and by the time you get to those final scenes with her, you're like, because she's not like that when you first meet her. No, I mean she might be like come off like a little weird, but like it's not like you don't suspect anything. Like when Jake Gyllenhaal first goes to her house and she talks to him for the first time, like you don't get that at all. No, I was completely. Even my friends that saw it with me when we saw it in theaters, like, well, I had no idea this is where this was going. Yeah, and that in itself, like the whole motive is like really it's dark and like unsettling, and like I said before, it's like you don't see like violent stuff happen to kids in this, and like but it's all the implications of like where your head can go thinking about like what the situations that happened before, like all that stuff.
It leaves a lot up to the imagination. Like I think that's why I think using the word ambiguous like I used before, it's like you kind of have to put it together yourself. And yes, there's very explicit reasons for why they did everything, and like yes, you can kind of come to your own conclusion, but like everything is so just like uncertain about everything. Like this is such an interesting thing that could happen, and all of these pieces that kind of fit together in this certain situation for it all to happen. But like I don't know, I just really think that even the movie doesn't give us like the satisfaction. Like we don't get to see the reuniting of the daughter and her family. We don't necessarily get to see Hugh Jackman, whether or not he survives or not. Like I think the resolutions that we're looking for when we first get introduced to this whole topic, they don't even really show it, which is wild, I think.
Which is like a very brave thing to do. I mean, like, because I can like piss off a lot of people that would see it. They're like, that want like definitive answers. But I kind of like when movies do that, where they kind of like, hey, open for interpretation. You decide where these characters end up. Like, you want to believe that it's a positive, like, because you've watched these families go through hell for 2.5 hours. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I like that they kind of leave it up in the air a little bit. Where
I also think like. So there's actually a fun fact. So they did film an ending to the movie, actually. So like when they were filming it, they did, and right before they released it, they did have an ending where he does get found. So like just in case audiences needed a solution, but it was never written in the script. Like the original intention was to leave it up to the interpretation of the audience. So like I'm so glad that it stayed that way, because I just think it would have put like. It would have kind of put every other decision that they've made in the movie a little bit like it wouldn't have mattered as much. Like I think that it was a great choice to leave it up to us. But like I think I kind of want to pivot back to like the abduction and everything. Yeah. Like the use of LSD, something that I never would have expected. It's such a strange, but also it makes so much sense. Like how do you get two children to be quiet
Yeah,
and
yeah,
like unassuming in a place that's very possibly easy to find.
yeah.
Like,
That
and
angle was
I'm
so
just trying to
dark, so
imagine.
dark too, dude. Like I was like,
It was
really?
just, oh
Like
my gosh, dude.
that was
That's a
super
quick
dark.
way
I
to
was
get
like,
your kid.
damn.
Yeah. It's a quick way to get
Yeah,
your kid to not do drugs in college.
exactly. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and like I said, like all this stuff with the abduction and all that, and uh, it just feels real. Like a lot of that stuff that
Yeah.
happens feels like, I mean, like I said before, like I watch a ton of true crime stuff, and like you can like I can watch like a documentary about a child abduction, and this
Mhm.
movie mirrors that like
Very
almost
well.
to a T, where it's like
Mhm.
this is exactly how like some of these towns react. This is sometimes how some of these families react.
Mhm.
It's they really feel like the police aren't doing enough. The police believe that they're doing what they can with what they have. Uh,
Mhm.
Sometimes they don't have the resources to deal with something like this. I thought like they touched on all that in a really realistic manner,
Yeah.
and especially I mean especially like some people do like when they, like I said, when they think that's the guy or the girl or whoever that did it, they zero in on it,
Yeah.
and then some towns do kind of go into this kind of like vigilante justice kind of scenario,
I'm gonna
especially when
do it
they
myself.
yeah, especially when they feel like the law's not moving fast enough.
Yeah.
And
I I also think too that it puts into the light that, I mean, all the things like when Terrence Howard's daughter is found,
right,
like everything that they ask her, she's being truthful about it all. Like she's
yeah,
giving them the right answers, but just
yeah,
the adults, they're like, no, she's been through a
yeah,
lot. It's shock. Like they don't believe her.
yeah,
And like there's all of these moments where like no one's actually really told any lies in this movie.
yeah,
Like
it's
everyone
true.
actually, like, yeah, everyone is telling the truth, doing what they think is
That's right.
what is right. And
Yeah,
I just think that scene, like, because you can see just it's such a wild moment that I did not expect the other daughter to be found. Like that was such a
yeah, I
pivotal
didn't expect
moment, I
I
think,
didn't expect that
because
yeah, either. Yeah,
it's like right when he's losing hope. It's right
right.
when Hugh Jackman's like, you know what? Like it's been whatever, couple weeks. She's probably
Yeah,
dead. Like
yeah,
I have to accept that fact. That just instantly sparks his manic again, like his mania.
yeah. I think so. Oh, I got what you just said. Kind of took me back to the scene in the car where like Jake Gyllenhaal said it hasn't been like 7 days. It hasn't been 7 days, and then
Six.
that's what pisses him off.
Yeah.
That's what like triggers him. He's like, yeah, it's been
Mhm.
sick. Like basically, like what's the big fucking difference?
Fuck you.
Like
Yeah. Fuck you,
yeah,
dude.
yeah,
Yeah. Oh, it
yeah,
hasn't been 7 days.
yeah,
Semantics.
yeah. Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, I thought that was like I was trying to think of like I was trying to remember like, and I just watched it too. Like what the moment was that made him go like, all right, now I'm
It
pissed
snapped.
off.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was that. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, everyone is doing what they think is kind of right. I mean, like it it puts you in an interesting position because like I mean, I'm not a violent person, so I don't think I could do what
No, no, dude.
Jackman's
There's
character
no
does.
way.
Like
There's no way.
there's no way I could like stage a kidnapping and then hold like someone like that
I
hostage
mean,
and then
I
like
feel like I
and
would
then
be
I would
like,
hope whatever if I had told you like, yo, dude, I'm holding this guy. I
I'd be
hope you
like,
would like talk some sense
bro.
to me. Like, what's wrong with
I would
you?
have been like, dude,
Like,
I don't know. Like you're different. You're way different than I thought you were.
oh, you are, yeah. So like, but like I do think some people would though. Like they definitely
Oh,
might
definitely,
get there.
definitely. The thing
But
is,
it does.
it's such a un like it's so uncommon and infinitely, like, you can't prepare someone to go through that. Like you
Yeah,
can't just expect someone's reaction to be like in any way viable or realistic
right.
because like and so I mean I'm guessing just at this point, like I would probably be in the stage of both of Hugh Jackman and his wife, of
Yeah,
complete despair mixed with absolute anger and frustration. Like it's
right.
probably be a mix of both of those. They just show every single response to that situation that is like it's such a in each of the different characters. It's so
Yeah.
well done.
Like I kind of feel like if anyone, I probably if I got brought in on something like this, I'd be the Terrence Howard. I think I
Terrence
would.
Howard.
I mean, I think eventually I would say something to someone else or tell or go to the police. I mean, just seeing how like out of control it was getting now. I think things get complicated because he gets the wife involved and now she
Hmm.
knows. So he can't really, there's the whole like
I
Now it's not
think it's
just you.
actually it's so funny too, because you can tell that he's so uncertain about the situation, about whether or not to tell anyone
Yeah.
or like confront Hugh Jackman. The second he tells his wife, they cut to the scene. She's knocking on his door. And it's like, what the fuck are you doing?
Yeah. It's so
like,
good.
She immediately takes action when he's like, I don't know what to do.
But yeah, I mean, but that we were saying that's like kind of what the character is like. It seems like he, like when we first meet him, he seems more of like, I guess pushover is the wrong word, but like compared to Hugh Jackman, who seems more like
definitely.
Hugh Jackman's character feels more like the alpha, and you can even see that in the way that he raises his son too. The way and they don't have like
even in the first
Hunter and all that, and they don't have like a ton of scenes together, but you kind of get that kind of like what the family dynamics are like in just a few moments, right? You only get like a few early moments to like know what this family was like when they were like happy, and that's all you really get. There's not like a lot of like exposition with these guys, like scene after scene. You get that one normal kind of bit of normalcy with the Thanksgiving, and then that's it. And totally didn't realize that Dylan Minnette plays the son. He was in like Don't Breathe. I totally forgot that he was like in this.
He does a great job. I mean, and I always respect those actors that at that age, because he was probably what, like 18 or maybe 17 or something, like that. Excuse me. It's such an interesting like position to. That's a serious movie to pretend to be in, like at that stage in your life. Like he does a great job in everything that he reads.
I thought he was really good without like a lot to do. I mean, but I think he kind of sold, because he has like the scene with when his mom, he's like trying to calm her down when she realizes like someone was in the house. Like, I think everyone from top to bottom is very good in this. But I know we talked about this offline, and I know we keep singing out Hugh Jackman, because I know Jake Gyllenhaal is the other like lead technically, who's also very good. So like I was mentioning earlier how like supporting, it's weird to call Jake Gyllenhaal supporting.
I know.
I'll say co-lead.
Co-lead, yeah, they're
I'll just
definitely
say co-lead, right? Like he has the more straight role here, right? Like we don't really get to learn like a ton about him. Like I said, we have to just kind of fill in the blanks about like who his character is, and he's a much more subdued person until he's not. When he's like, well, how is this not the guy? Like I thought I had the guy. But Hugh Jackman was on. I mentioned this earlier. Like this movie only got one Oscar nomination, and it was for best cinematography, and that's great because the movie looks amazing.
It's great. Yeah,
it looks amazing. I am kind of stunned that it didn't get nominated for Best Picture that year, or for the year it qualified. And I'm especially stunned that at least
what was in that class? What was in that class?
I'm gonna look it up really quick. So that would be 2014. Let me see. Because like it was like the movie was on the National Board of Review as like one of the top 10 movies of the year that it came out. It got really good reviews. I mean, it has an 81% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Oh, so it was Captain Phillips, Gravity, American Hustle, 12 Years a Slave. Fuck, man, those are a lot of Oscar push movies.
Oh, wait. Say them again. I'm trying to figure out which one I would
Captain Phillips, The Wolf of Wall Street, 12 Years a Slave, Her, Gravity, American Hustle, and Dallas Buyers Club. That is a hell of a year.
I think I would kick out Captain Phillips.
I would put Captain Phillips below this one.
That's why I had you repeat. it. I was like, wait, what? I was like, yeah, okay, I kick out Captain.
I like
Phillips.
it. I do like it better than Gravity, but like,
are you able to see?
Those are some pretty.
What actors?
Wolf of Wall Street, 12 Years a Slave, Dallas Buyers Club. Like,
whoa! So that means the actors nominated that year would be Matthew McConaughey would be nominated for Best Actor. Too. Jared Leto was supporting. So and then lead, that would be Joaquin Phoenix. He got nominated for Her.
Yep.
Leonardo DiCaprio got nominated for Wolf of Wall Street.
Wolf of Wall Street.
I don't know who the other two would be that fill in that spot, but I don't know how Hugh Jackman missed his shot here.
Yeah, especially like. Yeah, I think he should have been nominated at least for that.
Because you know what, he was nominated for Les Miserables before this. And I'm not saying that he was bad in it. Les Miserables is not my vibe.
That's not your type.
I like some movie musicals, but that is like it's way too like movie musical. It's like
it's basically an opera.
It's opera, right? And he's good in it. And like, you know, like we all know that he is a song and dance man in real life. Like this is a guy who like could go from playing Logan Wolverine to like doing Broadway. Like he like has
Yeah.
done like so many different things. We talked about like what his best performance is like off of this before,
Mm-hmm.
but watching this again today, I can like wholeheartedly say I think this is like his strongest performance of his career.
Yeah, it's really hard to contend with any other one besides this one. I mean, he's so great in The Prestige, but that you don't see this. I love the word you used, visceral side of it. Like
Yeah,
it's just so gripping and like gritty. The feeling of hopelessness mixed with this anger and just unhingedness, like we keep saying. It's like I think you're right. It's definitely top 3 performances, probably with The Prestige and his job as in Logan. Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah.
There's a lot of really good ones.
And I just wonder. I just kind of want to know what the vibe was like on set because this is such a serious movie, right? And I'm just wondering, like, are they in that headspace the entire time, or is it? I mean, like, because it's such an intense movie.
How can you not be?
There's no levity other than like the introduction during Thanksgiving.
If they're joking around on set, how could they be prepared to be? I feel like it was a very like I don't know how long like the shoot time was for this and how long it took for them to make it, but that was probably a very intense 4 to 5 months or whatever it was. Like,
and I also want to give Paul Dano credit for being a trooper because I'm sure that wasn't easy. Playing that either, and like that. I mean, it's a really great performance from him too.
Mm-hmm.
But he had to endure a lot. I mean, of course, he's not really being physically hurt, but there's a lot to kind of.
You're still tied to a radiator.
You're still tied to your radiator. You also have like I know it's acting, but you have like this intense fucking dude like yelling at you,
screaming, pretending to beat the shit out of you.
And then like all the fucking makeup that they have to use to like make him look
prosthetics
like
prosthetics and everything.
Like he did a really good job as well, I think. Like like I know I said like he seems like he gets typecast of these kind of people. But like he is a good actor. He's a very solid actor.
Very good.
And I do want to kind of mention is there anything else you want to mention about the movie in general? For a few facts.
Yeah, no, I wanted to ask you what you think happens at the end. Like if you could give like the next, like, I don't know, like right after you see, so basically the way the movie ends is you see Jake Gyllenhaal recovered from his injuries. He's left the hospital after he's killed the abductor. He saved the girl, but Hugh Jackman's still missing. So, but he's also on the run because they know that he kidnapped Paul Dano. So like you could interpret that as you think he's on the run, he's not coming back, he's still missing. So him being gone is not alert for the police at this point, which is crazy, honestly, in that moment. But he goes back to the scene where they're recovering some things and he hears the whistle. So like, but then it just cuts to black. And so it kind of leaves it up for interpretation whether or not you think he heard him. He's going to just think that it was the wind, whatever it is. I wanted to hear what you think happens right after that.
And I always wonder what it's like when like you have like you have characters like this that like are they have to do the right thing and like all that stuff. A part of me believes like considering what they've watched, what he's watched him go through, even though what he did to Alex was like completely wrong. Like he does mention that like he thinks that like he's a good man though. Like he has like this isn't someone who was like prone to like break the law or do bad things or anything like that. This is just someone that is reacting based solely on like grief and desperation. A part of me wants to believe that like he heard it and just let him be. I mean, I would like I would want him to. It sucks because I feel bad saying that he should be caught for what he did, but like I kind of don't want him to be. I mean, I know that's the right thing, for him to get caught.
So you'd rather have him die, like not be found by Jake Gyllenhaal?
Yeah, I wouldn't want to see him like. I feel like if he dies and in a weird way, like he's kind of like there's some peace there a little bit because
absolved
like a little bit, and then like because if he gets caught, and then like goes to jail or to prison, whatever. Like,
Yeah.
you know, there's that. I think there's a little poetry in that. Of like, if he is completely, if he's just dies, then like he's kind of absolved of the things that he did. And since he is a Christian man, like that is what would, if you ask for forgiveness before that happens, like you are absolved of your sins, and like there's that part of it too. I think both endings are so bleak. Like,
the endings that I have.
There's no like way where I'm trying to figure out how can I make this like happy, like could he just like if he survives and he like gets caught and turns himself in, could you like be like, is there a case for like temporary insanity or like something like that? Could you get him off based on that? But then I'm overthinking it, I think.
I totally know what you mean. So the way I interpret it is like, I think there's two ways that it kind of goes. It's like, especially in the theme of prisoners, like I think one is that he hears the whistle, whether or not it's that exact moment that he uncovers the hole and whatever it is underneath the truck, whatever. I think he finds him and then he goes to jail. Hugh Jackman then becomes the prisoner literally by going to jail for however long it is, and then kind of he's already left his family, like he's kind of just become this different person now. He's already made his choices and he's going to be he's going to face the consequences of them. But then I also think there's this other side of it where he hears the whistle but he still can't find him. And I think the woman who abducts the children, what's the actress's name?
Melissa Leo.
Yeah, Melissa Leo. Like she even said, you'll probably last down there for 24 hours. So like, if he didn't find him in 24 hours, he's going to die and then he'll never find him.
Right.
But then if that's the case, then Jake Gyllenhaal is the prisoner of like, there's no actual closure. Like he might have found the girl. He knows who abducted it, but like what happened to the dad? Why?
What happened to him? Yeah.
Where
so he's
was
gonna
the
be
daughter
locked.
held?
He's gonna be locked in all that
locked in his own
himself,
head, beating himself up for like why he couldn't figure this last one out. And so I think like both endings, like you said, super bleak, super like not good. Like, but I think I like to think that he found him because I like Jake Gyllenhaal's character a little bit better, I think, than I don't know, man. It's
hard.
It's super hard.
And honestly, the whole thing is really bleak too, because like they've gone through this whole thing with like the abduction of their kids, and they get them back, but like now the dad's gone. Yeah. And like now the family's still not whole. The family is still fractured. So it's like there's no like I mean, like,
it changed their lives forever, regardless of whether
no matter how you look at it. And these are all based on like completely impulsive decisions. If you just maybe would have waited a little bit. I mean, like I said, it's hard when you're the family member and they're telling you to like, you got to wait this out. We can only hold him for 48 hours, like all this other stuff. Like,
it goes back to what you were saying too. Like, it's such a normal day and it changes instantaneously. Like, that's how quickly it changes. Away. Hugh Jackman's life and his family's life changes forever when he's like, I'm going to kidnap him and get some answers, or even just like hold him real, get some answers. From then on, there's no going back after that. Like, it's just these quick impulse little things that change the course of the characters' lives forever, which is super wild.
It's crazy. And I do give screenwriter credit for like not wrapping up everything in a neat little bow. I mean, I'm sure that was most people that go see movies don't like that. They need resolution. A lot of people they need resolution, and I kind of get that too, because like you spent 2 hours like watching something, and your money and your hard-earned money, and you're like, come on, like give me like all the answers, but like it's life is like that though. Like you don't always get, like, at least right away, you don't always get the answers that you want. Like that.
I also think too, because I always think back, understand why didn't this movie get the critical looks and the talking about that it deserved. I mean, that year it's not going to be the movie that you write about on Twitter and say, yo, this was a fun time, everyone needs to know this. especially when the Wolf of Wall Street is out that same year. Like there were pop phenomenon. Gravity was a pop culture phenomenon when it came out. Like Her was a dystopian future that everyone likes. Super unique. Like there's so many more ideas and stories that were being told that like,
Yeah.
and this is such a real like horrible situation that like I can understand why a lot of people didn't see it. I think that it was a little bit before its time, and honestly, and if this came
Yeah.
out maybe within the last couple of years, it would have been highly critically nominated.
Yeah, I mean, so like when we landed on this, when you landed on this as the movie you were going to choose, I assumed for some reason in my brain it got nominated for a bunch of stuff, and that's what I was like, oh, so I went to go look it up, and when I was reading, it was like it got one Oscar nomination. And then I was like, for what? And I was like, okay, cinematography, that's nice. It's a pretty good looking
Yeah.
movie. But then
It's
I was
a
like,
slap.
and then it was like
Yeah.
nothing else, and I was like, really? That I mean, I guess it was a strong year, but like I was completely floored that it didn't. And now the movie didn't like flop by any means whatsoever. It made like $60 million here and 122 million worldwide, and I think it was on a $45 million budget, or maybe a little bit more.
Yeah.
I think some of the actors took pay cuts to do the movie, which makes $46 million budget. There's a lot of like decent names in here that would
That's-
inflate that budget.
Yeah.
But yeah, it made $61 million in the States and $122 million worldwide, which is pretty good for an adult drama with subject matter like this. I think it's like
Yeah. I mean,
it's a tough sell in general to get people to go to the movies to go see something.
I
like
mean,
this.
what's the last movie that made what was something that made that much money this year? I mean,
Like that's made for
like adult drama.
adult drama. It's pretty bleak. You have to go back. They were talking about this with Knives Out, how Knives Out did really well for the 1 week it was open.
Yeah.
And that is geared towards like an older audience, even though like younger people do like it. It attracts an older demo based on like all the stars that are in it and all that stuff. But they were saying like, Steven Spielberg has a movie out called The Fablemans, which is like loosely based on his life growing up wanting to be a filmmaker. Great reviews, geared towards adults, not doing that well. Oddly enough, Paul Dano's in that too.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he's in that. They were talking about stuff like The Menu,
Oh,
but
okay.
the menu is like, yeah, but it's offbeat and it's not really like, it's kind of strange.
I got
So that's
one.
not gonna put which one?
So Nightmare Alley. That's also a big star-studded cast. It's got Bradley Cooper, like
Right.
57 million.
Yeah. So like it's hard, like, to sell this to, I think this time last year, House of Gucci, which was geared towards an older audience,
Yeah.
made money, but there were a lot of extenuating circumstances, right? You had Lady Gaga, you had like the subject matter is interesting because it's based on like a
The
true crime
promotion
story.
too was
The promotion
insane.
was crazy. I think the fact that Prisoners did as well as it did and the kind of climb like
That year, too.
that year, like it's pretty amazing, I think.
Yeah.
I do want to throw out some fun facts about Prisoners.
If we can call them fun.
Oh, no, yeah, I'll try. Okay, maybe. Okay, some of them might not be fun. I will. I'll try to only pick the fun ones. I probably shouldn't say that when the movie's so serious.
It's
Um,
so serious.
All right, so Detective Loki's tattoos, Freemason ring, and facial tics, which I didn't really notice until I
The
watched it
blinking.
today,
The
were
blinking.
all Jake Gyllenhaal's idea. He came up with all of that and I guess that makes sense that we were saying that you don't really get to learn a lot about him. So like he has to kind of paint that like picture for himself, and then of course that paints it for us to kind of give him a little bit more of a background. Ryan Gosling was up for Jake Gyllenhaal's part at one point.
Oh,
And-
honestly, I love Ryan Gosling. cannot imagine anyone else besides Jake Gyllenhaal playing that.
I
role.
can't either. And what's funny, they said that like at that time, Jake Gyllenhaal and Ryan Gosling were consistently going out for the same parts because they were around the same age.
Yeah.
Almost the same type of like actor. But Denis Villeneuve, I hope I said it right.
Yeah,
Villeneuve, he had worked with Jake Gyllenhaal in a movie called Enemy, and like he basically gave him this part without having him audition at all. And it all worked out in the end because Ryan Gosling eventually worked with him on Blade Runner 2049.
Yeah.
Backstory for about the character of Loki. The screenwriter said, just for his own frame of reference, he said that Detective Loki grew up in a boys' home and didn't really have a family. He's a prisoner of his own past with his own demons, which I think is pretty interesting too.
Yeah, when he says that when he finds the priest, right?
Wait, sorry, yeah. So that's pretty cool. The screenplay for this movie was featured on the 2009 Blacklist. It's a list of the most liked unmade scripts of the year. So this movie was written in 2009 and was like they kind of like will rotate and like go through different people, and like it ended up on that list in 2009, which is pretty interesting. You're back. They'll just like cut it together.
Yeah, no worries. Sorry, you cut out there for a second.
Where did I live? Was it about the screenplay?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was on the 2009 Blacklist, and it's a list of the most liked unmade scripts of the year. So this was written back in 2009, and that is a really popular list because like they'll rotate a lot of that through different studios, trying to get stuff like this made. And that's how they know like it's like a hot script too.
Nice.
Basically. The director said that Mark Wahlberg was instrumental in getting the film made. He hopped on as a producer, which allowed them to get the funding that they needed. At one point, Mark Wahlberg and Christian Bale were set to star in the movie, and Bryan Singer was set to direct it, but the two actors opted to make The Fighter instead.
Wow, that's actually a crazy story.
Yeah, I didn't know. I mean, I didn't even know that Mark Wahlberg had anything to do with the production of it, but that's pretty cool.
But I mean, that's also such a great movie to choose.
Yeah.
Instead, like, I mean, because the actor, I can't imagine them playing those characters. Like they fit the script of The Fighter so much better.
But
I think that like all the actors and producers chose the right people. I mean, at the end of the day, like that's a wild way for that to get made, but thank God it did.
Yeah, I agree. During one point during its long development, Leonardo DiCaprio was attached to the project, but he eventually dropped out. And I'm assuming he would have played. I'm assuming he would have played Jake Gyllenhaal's character.
Yeah,
I can kind of see it. I like Jake Gyllenhaal.
I like Jake a Shutter Island role. He would be exactly like he was in Shutter Island.
Exactly. Hugh Jackman actually was attached to the project a long time ago, and this is when Antoine Fuqua was attached to direct it, but they both dropped out. And then the movie was in development for several more years and made its way back to Hugh Jackman, who then returned for the lead role.
Damn, so he had some time to practice.
Yeah, some time to practice. Yeah, had some. I mentioned this earlier, but I should say it again because it's just impressive how like talented everyone is. The film cast includes 2 Oscar winners, Melissa Leo and Viola Davis, and 3 Oscar nominees: Hugh Jackman, Jake Gyllenhaal, and Terrence Howard.
Yeah, that's amazing.
And that's amazing.
The director has been, I mean, he's also awesome.
Yeah. I'm not sure which role because it doesn't say, but Timothée Chalamet auditioned for a role, maybe for The Son.
He would have been pretty young at that time.
Yeah. So yeah, that probably makes sense for him.
He would also go on to work with Denis Villeneuve.
Yeah. It's so weird how like this is like they all like are in the same circle in this.
Yeah.
Jessica Chastain was also attached to the movie at one point.
Probably the wife. Yeah.
Probably Hugh Jackman's wife. Yeah. And then of course, everyone listening to this, since we recapped the whole movie, so that was a big spoiler discussion.
Yeah.
But they said the moment where Holly asked Keller to drink a little more was improvised by Melissa Leo, who thought Hugh Jackman wasn't drinking enough to make the situation believable.
Oh, so like, wow, that's really cool.
That is cool. The first time the movie was submitted to the MPAA, it received an NC-17 rating due to its tone and subject matter. The film's torture scenes were later cut by a couple frames, along with scenes suggesting pedophilia, and then it received an R rating.
I mean, good. I don't think it needed pedophilia. I don't think it needed any of that.
Paul Dano admits to being attracted to roles of this nature. Oh, that's funny as we mentioned that. People with learning difficulties, screaming, nonsensical ranting, and says he draws on his own personal and private experiences to perfect these recurring roles.
Wow. That's
pretty deep.
That's super deep.
That's
interesting.
Okay. For the hammer scene, Hugh Jackman was asked by the director to be completely ferocious for the next take. That take was used in the final film. So when he completely destroys the sink, was the take that they used in the final film.
Yeah, I mean, when a director says be ferocious, that's how you do it.
Yeah.
You break a sink. You destroy what the props department doesn't want to have to fix.
this is also interesting because of like where, yeah, at one point in the film, Hugh Jackman's character says to Paul Dano's character, "No more riddles." This is years before Dano was to play the Riddler in the Batman. So there's a lot of like foreshadowing for where these people end up uh next.
That's so wild.
And yeah, I think that's all of them. Um, yeah,
There's
it
some good
also ended,
facts.
it also ended up on a few, I think 10, yeah, like 10 top 10 lists that year. So it wasn't
Really?
completely. I mean, critics really liked it. I still think. I mean, 81% Rotten Tomatoes is good. I feel like I thought it would be a little higher.
Yeah.
Um,
I was expecting. I
but
was at least an 85.
yeah, but I think the subject matter is hard. Even
It's really
for I
hard.
like you'll find this too. Like certain press people, when they see movies like this, it it hits them in a certain way that it's uncomfortable, and
Yeah.
they'll have a hard time enjoying the movie. And I think
Yeah.
that can. I think that I'm not saying that's true for everyone. There might have been critics that just didn't enjoy it at all, but like I think that happens for some where it's like the subject matter is so heavy and it's so intense that it's just like this is not my cup of tea.
Also could just be
Basically.
that there's no resolution. Also, I mean that
Yeah,
could be why some people be like, hey, like you can give me something I sat through, like we were saying, a very serious and intense movie, and you're not going to give me an answer.
yeah. And like I know we're closing things up, but like uh for the director, like this is a I mean, I know this wasn't like his like first movie, but like, this is his first significant movie here in the States.
Mm-hmm.
And like since then, he hasn't made a bad one. Like I mean, he's been
He
like
hasn't.
his
No,
stuff.
no.
I mean, like you can like say things about Blade Runner 2049, but it's still technically a well-made movie.
Mm-hmm.
Uh Arrival, I know Arrival is one of your favorite movies. Like it
Yeah.
was Arrival was my favorite movie of the year that it came out.
Mm-hmm.
Uh I really enjoyed it. And Dune, adapting something like as massive as that book is a task in and of itself. And I think he's proven to be one of the most like visionary directors we have working right
Yeah,
now.
it's so well done, and all the way that I mean, he uses his cinematography to his advantage in
Right.
all these movies in very, very different situations. In like 2049, Arrival,
Yeah.
it actually the next one that I want to see, which I haven't seen yet, especially after rewatching this, is Enemy,
Yeah.
which he
I need
made
to
with
watch
Jake
that too.
Gyllenhaal again. So I actually I
Yeah.
haven't seen that, so I'm really looking forward to seeing that with both one of my favorite directors and Jake Gyllenhaal again.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, and what's cool is that it shows that he can direct anything. I mean, like
Yeah.
he like something as like small and kind of personal as this, and then like big and like and with and as wide a scope as like something like Dune, like
But
and like
also
and when
always star-studded. He only picks
yeah.
like
So like I think there are certain directors like when they come out the gate and like they make really like eye-opening, like really great films, like as soon as they kind of like get kick-started, they
yeah.
become like they get the attention of like almost every actor who's like, oh, I really want to work with him. And I think
Hmm.
that is where he's at, where he
Has to
I
be.
mean, yeah, he can if he wanted to, he could take a pause and like make a movie every 5 years if he wanted to, and he would still have people that were like, I want to work with him. Like he
Yeah.
would have like a game ready cast that's like ready to work
It's
with
a
him.
very different type of like Paul Thomas Anderson. It's like every
Yeah,
actor
yeah,
wants to work with him, but that's a very
different. Yeah,
specific type of movie. And I think that he also has this very specific cerebral and like very like interesting way of telling stories that
yeah,
I would want to work with him if I was an actor.
yeah, for sure. And like and watching Prisoners, like it kind of makes me. I know that he's doing the second part of Dune right now, but I would love for him to go back and like make something like a
Yeah.
little bit smaller and personal
So
like this, because
true.
it's just proof that he like I mean I think we kind of forgot because he's done Dune, he did Blade Runner, that like
Yeah.
he seems to be like an actor's director too. Like he knows how to like
Yeah.
get the best out of them. We've seen that in Prisoners. You saw that with Amy Adams in
Arrival.
Arrival. Like I mean, like he's pulling the best out of like all these people, and like I would love to see him make something like this again.
Yeah.
Um,
I would buy a ticket in a heartbeat.
yeah, for sure. Well, that is the end of this. I think it's the end of our
Yeah.
first deep dive, and that was a good
Dude,
first choice.
that was awesome, man. That
Yeah,
was really nice.
that was a good that was a good one for me to revisit too, because I hadn't watched it in a few years actually, and I don't know why I hadn't, because it's a maybe because it's heavy, but like it's a really
Yeah.
like powerful movie.
It's not one that you typically would like, hey guys, want to watch a movie?
Yeah, that's true.
You don't necessarily, yeah.
So I purposely saved one of the questions from earlier for last, because like I know it's gonna be like, okay, when you end the show, like, are you gonna tell us what movie you're choosing next?
Oh,
So they were asking like, how will we know what movie you're gonna choose next? So we talked about this offline, and I'm willing to do it this way because I think it'd be more fun. Instead of being like, oh yeah, this is what we're doing next. Like I think like I'm gonna throw out some like hints on like the Instagram page and the Twitter page to kind of get like the listeners to like guess what the movie's gonna be.
Yep.
And then like the day that we record, like I'll jot down everyone's names who like got it right, and like we'll shout some of them out on the episode who actually got it right, and then that's when you'll know like what movie we're gonna choose next.
I think a great way to do it too would just be posting stuff like, hey, here's a list of the top 5 movies that year, or like here's who won best actor that year this movie came out. Or like maybe put another movie that an actor's in as like some sort of leading thing, so we can get some cool guesses, some Easter eggs.
We'll throw in maybe some like movie quotes to see if you like can guess like
nice
guess the movie, like, you know, coming from that. I know at Drew Reviews on Instagram does like this cool like little scramble thing with like images from movies, and he said he'll show me how to like kind of do that. So I think I might like do something like that to get you guys to guess.
Yeah.
But the good thing is like we will know which one we're gonna pick. We are gonna talk about it. But yeah, you guys won't really know until we release it.
Till
Shout you
a couple
guys
weeks
out
from now.
Yeah. So yeah, like I said, this is a bi-weekly series. So you'll hear this one that we're recording right now on Friday this week. Then we take a week off, and then we come back again. I know like it's gonna be a little like, I know there's like the whole New Year's Day and all that stuff that comes like after that. So we'll figure out how to record, or like how we're gonna do that then with like.
So it'll be we'll figure out when to record. Actually, no, it'll be the 19th. So that'll be fine.
That's the next one, and then so then after that, I know it gets a little bit more complicated with like with after Christmas and then New Year's Eve and day. But we will.
I don't think it should be a problem.
Okay, well, we will maintain our normal schedule for this, so you'll get an episode every other Friday.
There we go.
And like I said, there's a ton of movies for us to pick, and we're very excited to pick them and like talk about this the way we've been doing it tonight. I am excited for this because it's like reinvigorated my whole like just being excited for like the brand as a whole. Yeah, and then also it's great to have Owen back on a regular basis, and like,
dude,
and
honestly, man, it feels good. Feels good to be back and just take it back to the roots of what this whole podcast was started on in the beginning.
Yeah, like this is exactly the conversations we were having like privately about movies.
Yeah, no, this is literally just like a normal other conversation with me and Gaius. Like,
pretty much. So we're basically just lifting that and like sharing it with you.
It's just typically we have a football game or a beer in front of us.
Yeah. So like we're just trying to take that experience and like share it with you, and like it's good to go back to like the roots of like what this was, and I'm glad we rediscovered that when we did the 1 year episode, and like very excited for like what's to come with this, because I think it's gonna be great, really good. And like one of the good things about having you back is that I don't have to do the outro anymore.
You
can do it. I hate the outro. So you can do the outro.
Definitely. Well, guys, thank you so much for listening to our first episode of the Back to the Blockbuster spinoff deep dive with Gaius and Owen. This is just something that we love to do. We love recording and talking about movies. So just thanks for listening. You can find us anywhere that you listen to podcasts. Personally, myself, I'm a Spotify guy. Had a bunch of podcasts on my Spotify Wrapped. But if you like to listen on Apple Podcasts or Google Podcasts, anywhere else, you can always do that. Are we throwing this up on YouTube?
But yes, channel? So we're gonna start that with this, restart that with this.
Cool. Yeah. So we can toss this one up on YouTube if you would like to see our bright and shining faces, trying to do as much smiling and laughing as we can during a very serious topic like this movie. But so if you guys want to watch this, we can do that. But keep on listening. Follow us on Instagram, Back to the Blockbuster. Definitely check out G Reels. That's where this whole thing pretty much started. And just keep on listening, and we can't wait to do some more movies. Thanks, guys.
Yeah. Thank you so much. And also I want to throw into you, like, let us know like what you think of this segment of the show.
Yeah.
What you liked about it. Honestly, like I know we're choosing the movies, but if you have something you want to
Yeah,
throw our
throw
way
out
that
some
maybe we don't,
suggestions.
yeah, we will definitely throw them in the hat and like probably eventually get to them. So
And like we said at the beginning, nothing's off limits.
yeah, we won't yeah, it won't always be movies about child abduction.
Yeah, child abduction. Thank God they took the pedophilia out.
Yeah,
Jeez.
thank God. Yeah. But yeah, I wanted to throw that in too because we want this to be like a collaborative effort with you guys as well eventually. So like yeah, so don't hesitate to let us know what you thought. And we're excited for what's coming next. So thanks guys.
Thanks,
Peace.
guys. See you in a couple weeks.